Hey guys, so for this video we're going to be making this mini-map right here. It does use the viewport frame, but more than that, it has these icons that are tied to specific locations. And because they're actual icons, we can use like mouse enter and mouse click events on it to make it a little more interactive for your players. And so that's that. If you guys want to start out with, this place I have set up as well as the map GUI, then feel free to take that from the description so you can get straight to coding. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to use a suburban template made by Roblox, just so I have a map to work with, but feel free to use your own. And so, first of all, I'm going to use a folder inside of the workspace. I'm going to name it to render, and this will pretty much hold everything that we want to actually render inside of our minimap. And so the question is, why do we want to be selective about it? Well, ultimately we don't want our players to have to render the map twice. So just go ahead and choose like the most important parts of your map that you think should be in your minimap. Once you're done with that, feel free to drag that into your to render folder. And we'll get started on our GUI. So in starter GUI, insert a screen GUI, or as I like to call it, screen GUI. And then we're going to name that map GUI. I'm going to insert a frame into that and name it, well, not a folder, but a frame. And I'm going to name that our main frame. And so this is actually really important. I usually like to use scale for most things, but for this we're going to want to make sure that it's the same size horizontally and vertically. So I'm going to do 200 for me, but if you guys want to use a different size, feel free. So I'm going to drag that here down to the bottom. Okay. I'm gonna have to change the position to 1 minus 200, so for all screens it should be at that exact position. And we also need a viewport frame here. We actually want that inside of our main frame. And make sure it's the same size, so that'll be 0, 200, 0, 200 for me. And then I'm going to set background transparency to 1. And then inside of our main frame we're going to want to insert an image button. Ultimately, you can use an image label, but I feel like we might want to make things clickable or hoverable later on. So I'll use an image button. And in this case, it doesn't matter if it's offset or scale, so I'm going to use scale. Just scale that down to how big I want the cursor to be, and then center it like that. Quick and easy. And I'm going to go grab the image for my cursor. You might have your own, so feel free to use that, otherwise you can use mine. And just a reminder, all these assets that I start out with, I will have this ready for you guys, so you can get straight to the coding. This time I won't paste the code directly, just because I want you guys to be able to do it on your own as well. So that's that. I'm going to change this scale type of our image button to be, it should be fit. Just so it's not stretched in one way, and it looks exactly as the image should look. And I'm going to change our background transparency to 1, make that a little smaller actually, and recenter. And we're going to name this image button to be cursor. And then I'm going to duplicate this, and this is going to be our icon template. So whenever we have a new icon, we're going to use this to clone it. I'm going to make it slightly bigger here. And then it should be not visible to start off. Okay, so there's actually some changes we need to make to the z-index so that this layers properly. So z-index of 1 is fine for the main frame, but let's make the z-index of 2 for the viewport frame, and then for the cursor and the icon template we can use 3 for both. But if you do want the cursor to be above, the icons at all times, you might as well make the index of the cursor to be 4. Alright, so feel free to edit your main frame. This will be the background of our viewport frame, so I personally want it to be this gray color. And no border. And that's about it. We can now insert a local script into our map GUI. I'm going to name it map script. And then we're going to start off with our variables. And variables aren't too fun. So I'm gonna go ahead and just paste everything here. So there's our variables. And as you can see, there's a waypoints variable here, and that's something we forgot about, or I forgot about. So I'm going to insert a folder into our workspace, and I'm going to name it waypoints. So in this waypoints folder, we're going to have parts that will tell us, or tell the script exactly where we want the icons to be located. So go ahead and insert a part into the waypoints folder. Make sure that it's not transparent, and that we can't collide with it, and then make sure it's anchored. So let's say we wanted a park or a playground waypoint here. And so we're just gonna name that playground, and we'll repeat the process for pretty much all the other waypoints. So I'll go ahead and do that, and you can do the same. Alright, now I'm all set. All my waypoints are set, and I've made sure, like I said earlier, they're all transparent, you can't collide with them, and they're anchored. So let's go through each of the variables. So waypoints is just that folder, we got our player, our root part is what we use for calculating positioning. Then we have our GUI stuff here, and then zoom. So zoom will actually represent the vertical height of the camera in our viewport. And so we also have a studs per zoom variable here. And I added that because I noticed, let's say my zoom right now is 300. So that means I'm at a height of 300 from the ground. And as you can see here, this area here is actually, it's not 300 studs across. And so I came up with studs per zoom to kind of help us more accurately place the icons in each position. So just keep that there, and know that you can tinker around with that later if you think the positioning is inaccurate. And then we have an icons dictionary here. Each of the keys are actually the names of each of our waypoints. So we got playground, we got gas station, school, and store. And the value here is there's an image property for each of them. And why did I make this into a dictionary rather than just, you know, just setting it equal to the image itself? Well, the reason I didn't do it like that is because I feel like ultimately you guys might want to add, you know, custom properties for each icon, such as like size, like how big do you want that icon to be, or I don't know. I just want to leave that space there for you guys. And then we have our viewport cam variable, and we don't initialize it to start because we're going to make our camera later. And this is the camera that's associated with our viewport frame here. And then we have our waypoint positions dictionary. So each of the keys of this will actually be each clone of our icon template. And it's going to be, the value will be each of the positions of each of these waypoints. And so this will help us calculate positions even when we have multiple waypoints that are named the same. So if we had multiple waypoints that are named the same, it wouldn't be a problem, thanks to this dictionary right here. So let's go ahead and start with our functions. And our first one's pretty basic. It'll be our CloneToViewport function. So I noticed on YouTube there's already a bunch of tutorials on how to essentially make a minimap using the viewport. So if you already know this part, feel free to skip on to the next timestamp. So we're going to set our viewport cam to be a new camera that we're going to instance with a workspace as our parent. Now we're going to change the camera type of that viewport cam to be enum.cameratype.scriptable, and then we're going to change the current camera of that viewport frame. So viewport frame.currentCamera equals our viewport cam. And then now we're actually going to do the cloning part. So for each child of the workspace.toRender folder, so we're going to use the getChildren function to get each of those children. And then we're going to make a clone of each child. So that'll be child clone. And then we're going to set the parent of that clone to be the viewport frame. Viewport frame. There we go. So that should cover it for us. I'm going to make a separate section here, and it'll be our, let's see, this is where the code will actually start running. So we're going to do CloneToViewport right here. We're going to call that so it actually does that. Our next function will be our function to create each of our icons. So create icons. And what we're going to do is we're going to loop through each waypoint inside of our waypoints folder. Again, that's this one here. So we're going to go through each of those. So we need to use getChildren again. Then for each of those waypoints, we're going to get the icon image, and we get that from our icons dictionary. So that's right here. And each of the keys, remember, is the name of that waypoint. So we're gonna pass in waypoint.name, and then that'll be .image, right? Because the image is equal to the actual image. And then we're going to make a clone of our icon template. So local clone equals icon template. And we're going to set the image of that icon template. Remember, your icon template is an image button, so it should have an image. Icon image. And then might as well set the name of that clone to be the name of the waypoint. And we're gonna also make sure that that clone is visible. And then we're going to set the parent of that clone to be the main frame. So that should appear right here. One last thing. We're going to set some entries in our waypoint positions dictionary with a key of a clone. And so that means the key will be an actual object. So that's unique to that waypoint. Again, rather than kind of differentiating them just by the name, we're going to use that clone object. And the value of that should be waypoint.position. So that'll help us calculate positions later on. Next up, we have our position icons. Function. Whoops. Position icons. And what this is going to do is we're going to loop through our waypoint positions dictionary. And so actually, rather than not caring about the key, we want to name that key as our waypoint icon. Remember, that's this thing right here, waypoint icon. And then the value is right here, which is waypoint position. In pairs, waypoint positions. So for each waypoint icon, we're going to calculate the magnitude. And so how you calculate magnitude, it's usually like that, right? It's position minus position dot magnitude. But in this case, if we think about it, this map isn't such a great example. But there may be a case where our waypoint part is actually like on the second floor or something. And remember that our minimap is essentially 2D. Even though we do render it, it's 2D still. And so we don't want to count the vertical height as like part of the magnitude. So we're going to have another function right here, and we're going to call it getGroundPosition. It's going to take in a position as a parameter, but what we're going to return is actually vector3.new, and we're going to keep position.x here. For y, we're going to set it to 0, hence getGroundPosition. We don't care about the vertical position of it, but we do care about position.c. So here in our mag variable, we're going to use our getGroundPosition function, and we're going to pass in the position of our humanoid root part. So that's root.position. And then right here, we're going to use getGroundPosition again, but instead we're going to use the waypoint position. Yep, there we go. So we've got our magnitude now, and now we're going to calculate position x. and then position Y. So for position X, we're going to start at cursor.position.x.scale, and that's because this really is our reference point, this cursor right here. And so we're gonna add, it'll be waypoint position.x minus root.position.x, and we're going to divide that by zoom. And remember, we have a studs per zoom right here, and that's important, so we're going to multiply that right here. Studs per zoom. Just to sum that up again, position x is cursor.position.x.scale plus the quotient of waypoint position.x minus root.position.x, as the numerator and the denominator is zoom times studs per zoom. And then we're going to repeat that process for position y, except this case we're going to use y. And you might think this is also y right here, waypoint position.y. But if you think about it, x, y, z, right? Y in that case would be vertical rather than in the direction that's perpendicular to x. So we're going to use z. And then we're going to use root.position.z as well. And now that we have position x and position y, we're going to actually set the position of our waypoint icon. So waypoint icon.position equals udim2.new. And this is like vector 3, right? But for UI. And then it'll be position x, which is scale, 0 for the offset, position y, which is scale for the y direction, and then 0 again for the offset. So that's about it for our position icons function. And so now, going back to the start portion here, we're already cloning to the viewport, but we also want to create the icon. So don't forget to use that function. And now we're going to do game get service run service dot RenderStepped connect function. And so we're making a function right here, and RenderStepped allows us to do something prior to each frame being rendered. I believe that's the definition. And so what we're going to do for each frame is we're going to, of course, position the icons, right? So position icons, but before that, we actually want to set the C-frame of our viewport camera. So viewport cam dot C-frame equals C-frame dot new. And for the first part of it, it'll be root dot position plus vector 3 dot new, a 0, and zoom. Again, I said that was vertical height, and then 0, and then comma, and then for the second part, it's root dot position. So we set the C frame of our viewport camera, and now we're going to set the rotation. So cursor dot rotation equals negative root dot orientation dot y. So this helps us, helps the player know which direction they're actually looking at. And so that should be about it for our script here. There are a couple steps that we're missing though. Let's see, what was it? Oh yes. So our viewport frame, we actually want to rotate this. If you want to see what happens if you don't rotate it, feel free, but I'm telling you, we have to rotate it, in this scenario at least. And then we're gonna set clips descendants of our main frame to be true. And then that should have fixed it. So it should be all set now. Now looking back at our code, There are definitely places where we can improve it. You know, in coding, there's always room for improvement, and that's not just in coding, of course, but have at it, you guys. Feel free to improve it in any way, and let me know. I'd love to see what you guys do with it and how you kind of make it your own. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you need any further help, feel free to let me know in the Discord server or in the comments down below. Please like, subscribe, I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video, hopefully tomorrow or sometime next week.